one from yesterday, I'm going to start on example 5. Okay, so first of all, does anything cancel? Well, we haven't factored yet, but no, nothing is going to cancel. If I have to factor on bottom, I'm going to have x minus 3 and x plus 2. So what are the roots? Is there an x on top? None. There's none. So if there's no roots, what does that mean about the x-axis? It doesn't touch the x-axis at all. So vertical asymptotes. Now, Cassie, where are the vertical asymptotes? There you go. So at 3 and negative 2, I don't have any tangency or togetherness this time. So do I have a horizontal or a slant asymptote? We're going to come back to it. Y equals 0 because it's bottom heavy. Right, if we have horizontal, we can't have slant. So does that make sense? We have the asymptote here, but we said there were no x-intercepts, so that makes sense because the function's not going to touch that axis. Okay, so that makes sense. The y-intercept, we put 0 in for x, and if I put 0 in, I get 6 over negative 3 times 2, which gives me negative 1. So I have 0, negative 1. And what numbers do I put on the number line? Right. The roots and the vertical asymptote, so this time it's just negative 2 and 3. So if I put negative 3 in, do I get a positive or a negative? Okay, those of you that are fighting, we have 6 over negative 6 times negative 1, which gives me positive. So what's coming next? And then, so we alternate. If there's no tangency and no togetherness, you're going to alternate, okay? So we didn't have tangency or togetherness, so we alternate. Isaac, put that up. So positive. From negative 2 on, do I have any points over here? So we have to test a point. So if you pick a point, well, actually, this one was 3, right? So if I have negative 3, then I get positive 1. This is positive, so I know this goes like this. Why did I test on that side? Why did I have to get a point? Do I have any points there? So you have to pick one and find it. It doesn't, yeah, any of them. I just picked negative 3 in the original equation. So it doesn't matter which x you picked. I just picked negative 3. Right. Because it has to be on this side. And then here to here, I already have this right here. And so it tells me from negative 2 to 3, the whole graph is what? Negative. So is there any up here? No. So the whole thing is down here, so it has to look like this. Now the last part over here, it says it's positive. So what do I have to do? Got to have a point. So if I put 4 in, what do I get? If I put 4 in, I get 6 over 1 times 6. So I get 4, 1. So, you can test any point you want, right? Like if I tested this point out here, I'm going to get an answer. The reason I kind of usually stay close to the asymptote like that is because that's probably going to give me this point, right? And so that's why I usually choose that close, okay? Okay, any questions? Cakewalk, right? This is easy peasy. All right, so the next one. So first of all, anything to factor. That's already factored. The 3. Okay? I want to do that because that's going to give me an x-intercept. So does anything cancel? No. So I don't have any holes. So my roots come from top. So I get 1 and -4. My vertical asymptote is at -2. Now the next question is tangency or togetherness. Is there on the bottom, you see how that whole term is squared? So that means it's x plus 2 times x plus 2. That's a duplicated term. That is togetherness. And it's togetherness at x equal -2. And so what that tells me is this, that at x equals -2, at this asymptote right here, both sides have to hug the asymptote. All right? So it's either going to both go up or both go down. That's what that means. And what that means is if they both go up, we can't alternate our signs. So you actually have to check. Okay? So if there's no tangency or no togetherness, we alternate. And we got that. Once you find the first one, the rest follow. But if there's togetherness or tangency, you have to test them all to see which one works. Okay? So, do I have a horizontal asymptote or a slant asymptote? So if I have horizontal, what does it equal? What does it equal, Angie? So what's the leading coefficient? You did lie. It's 3. You lied and you got lost. So the y-intercept, we're going to put 0 in for all the x's. So I get 3 times -1 times 4 over 2 squared, which gives me -12 over 4, which is -3. So let's just put the stuff on. Let's just put it on before we even start the number line. So I have roots at 1 and -4. I have a vertical asymptote at x equals -2. I have a horizontal asymptote at y equals 3. I don't have a slant asymptote. I have a y-intercept of 0, -3. Okay, so is that all the stuff? We've got it all on there now? Stuff is there. So, first of all, let's just take a guess, okay? I said there's togetherness at x equal -2. We're going to test our number line in just a second, but this part goes down, right? So what is this side probably going to do? They have to come together. Right? Well, he meant this way, right? You meant like this. Okay. So probably this part right here is going to be positive. This part right here is going to be negative. This is going to be negative. And this is probably positive. Okay? So I'm going to test to -4, -2, and 1. So if you test and you put the -5 in there, I get a negative times a negative, which is a positive, divided by a positive. So that gives me positive. If I test a -3, I get a negative times a positive, which is a negative, divided by a positive, so this is negative. If I test 0, I get negative over positive, which is negative. And if I test 2, I get positive over positive, so it's positive. So this is the only time the alternating isn't going to work, right? Otherwise, if there's no tangency and no togetherness, once you find the first one, you know the rest of them. So this is positive. This is going this way. This is going down. This is going down because of togetherness, and that goes up. Everybody okay? All right, I'm going to do number 7. It's on the next page. Apparently. Okay. So, does anything cancel? No. So no holes. The roots come from top. So what are my roots? 0 and -2. The vertical asymptote, 3 and -6. Now, do I have togetherness? Togetherness at x equals 3. So at the vertical asymptote of 3, they're either hugging going up or hugging going down. Do I have a repeated term on top? I do. So I have tangency at x equals 0. What?
So for togetherness, it's when there's a double on the bottom and then double on top.
Tangency is double on top. Togetherness is double on bottom. Tangency is a repeated term on top, and the x is repeated. What? Okay, so I am. So when we sketched the polynomials before, and we had a 2, what did we do on the graph? We touched, right? That's what a tangency is. Tangency is a touch or a bump, however you want to think about it, but we're going to touch the number line and go. So we're either going to touch and go back to positive or touch and go back to negative at 0. Any other questions before I go on? So the x squared, that's repeated, right? Because that could be like x minus 0. But we just don't write the minus 0. So if it was x plus 2 squared, then I would have another touch at -2. All right? Okay, do I have a horizontal or a slant asymptote? And don't just blurt this out. Actually look at your paper and think about it. Look at the exponents. They're the same. So if they're the same, they're tied. Why is it 1? There's no coefficient, so they're both 1. And so there's none on the slant asymptote. So then I'm going to find my y-intercept. So if I fill in 0 squared times 2 over negative 3 squared times 9, what's 0 times everything? 0. 0 divided by everything is 0. So I have a y-intercept of 0, 0. So at this point, at the 0, 0, I'm getting a touch. So it's either a touch to go back to positive or a touch to go back to negative. All right, so let's put all this stuff on. I have the point here at negative 2. I have a point here. I'm going to have a vertical asymptote at 3. A vertical asymptote at negative 6. So at 3, I'm going to get togetherness, and I'm getting a bump here, and I get a horizontal asymptote at y equal 1. So did I miss anything here? Okay. So now, fill out your number line. Okay, everybody figure. Asymptotes and roots. Both. On the number line. Original equation. Positive or negative. That's all. Okay, so we're not confused, we just don't like doing it. You all stand there and wait for me to do it, and I give you the number line, and then you can't do it on your homework. So it's not hard, it's not confusing, you just don't like it. What number did you test? Negative 7. Plug in negative 7. Negative 7 squared is positive. We don't care what the number is, it's positive. If I put negative 7 in there, negative. So what do you have on top? Negative. So you have to, in your little pea brains, remember that I have a negative on top. Then if I put negative 7 here, negative 7 minus 3 squared is positive. Negative 7 here is negative. So here I have a negative divided by negative, and that is positive. It's not confusing. It's not hard. You just don't like it. That's exactly right. So if you actually did it, you get positive, negative, positive, positive, positive. Now, so listen, if I know there's togetherness at 3, then I know at 3, these have to be the same. Right? Okay. They do. So, okay, now I'm looking at negative 6. I know it's positive, but I don't have a point. So what do I have to do? All right, so let's get a point. So if I did negative 7, what do I get? The original. So I get 49 times negative 5. Somebody multiply. Negative 5. Now we're going to divide 245 by 100 times negative 1. So divide by negative 100. So positive 2.45. All right. So at negative 7, it's like right here. So it's like somewhere close to right there. So the next thing here, I know this part is negative, right? It says in between here, this is all negative. So I know this goes this way. So now here's where you have to think for just a minute. Because between negative 2 and 0, so in this part right here, what is that? It's positive. So this has to come up, but what do I know has to happen at 0? It's a touch. So now listen carefully. So this comes up, and it comes down, because it has to touch, right? So now what do I have to do? I have to go back up. What am I going to run into? I'm going to hit the horizontal, but the vertical is here, right? And what's the rule about verticals? Never cross the vertical, but what can you touch? You can cross the horizontal. And you can cross the horizontal if you're between two verticals all the time. So this goes like this. So what's at this area over here? It's positive, and what has to happen here? Togetherness. So I know it has to go like this, and you probably should test a point right there, right? But that's what it's going to look like. You will have to test a point, all right? Well, I know this is togetherness, so I know this is what it's going to look like.
So then I have to do like a little grab on every single side.
Right.